I, female, 18, don't know how to handle mom's boyfriend. Male, 38, moving in and taking over my study space right before college. Throwaway, because my friends know my main, and I don't want this getting back to my mom. So I'm a senior in high school with like a 4.0 GPA, not trying to brag or whatever, just context. And I finally got accepted to State University with a partial scholarship that covers about 60% of the tuition. I've been working my ass off for this between school and my part-time job at this local coffee shop. I work like 15 to 20 hours a week depending, just trying to save up enough money for books and stuff. So everything was fine until about a month ago when my mom just announced that her boyfriend Kyle was moving in with us temporarily because his lease ended. And I've only met this guy 3 times before. He just suddenly appears with all his crap. The worst part, they gave him my study space in the guest room that has my grandma's desk and the good lighting where I've been studying for the past 2 years. Some background. My parents got divorced when I was 14. I used to hear them fighting about money late at night when they thought I was asleep. My mom has gone through a few boyfriends since then. Kyle is the first serious boyfriend in a while. I try really hard to have a good relationship with my mom. I help with dishes and cleaning, and I listen to her complain about her job at this dental office for hours. I know I'm not perfect. Sometimes when she hurts my feelings, I just stop talking to her, which is pretty childish, I guess, but I can't help it when I'm upset. It's been a thing since middle school. But now with Kyle here, everything is different. All his stuff is everywhere in the guest room. He has these boxes of random crap and clothes hanging over chairs, and it's just a mess. I can't study in there anymore. And I was using that space to prepare for finals. My room is tiny and doesn't have a proper desk, so now I'm trying to study on my bed, which is killing my back. Oh, and I had to move my frog collection to my windowsill because I needed the shelf space. My dad has been giving me these little ceramic frogs since I was little, and I have 12 of them, and I'm always afraid Kyle is going to knock them over when he barges into my room without knocking. The weirdest thing to me is how interested Kyle is in my college plans. The second time I met him, he was asking all these detailed questions about my scholarship and if I had loans and whether there was a college fund. I don't even care about money, honestly. I've saved $3,847 so far from my job, but I'm worried about textbooks because I heard they can cost like $200 each. Last night, while we were doing dishes, Kyle was in bed with another headache. My mom told me I need to accept Kyle as part of our family, or I can find somewhere else to live for my last few months at home. I couldn't believe she said that. She doesn't even want me here anymore. My dad lives 40 minutes away in a small apartment, and he said I could stay with him if needed. But that would mean changing schools right before graduation and losing daily contact with all my friends, especially Taylor, who's been my best friend since we were 8. But I'm terrified that if I leave, it will permanently wreck things with my mom. Despite everything, I still just want her to be proud of me, or whatever. So last night, I tried to talk to her about it. I asked why Kyle specifically needed the guest room and if he could put some of his stuff in the basement. Mom got really annoyed and said I was making things difficult and asked why I couldn't be supportive. When I reminded her I'd been using that space since sophomore year for studying, she called me selfish and said Kyle had nowhere else to go right now. When I asked how long he was staying, she just said, "We'll see how things go." I started crying, which I hate, and Mom accused me of turning on the waterworks to manipulate her. That hurt so much, I just got quiet and started to leave. She called after me saying my attitude was the problem. I slammed my bedroom door, and then I could hear them whispering in the living room for an hour, and I know they were talking about me. I don't know what to do. I feel like everything is falling apart right when I should be focused on finishing school strong. If I move to my dad's, I'll have to switch schools and probably lose my routine and friends, but if I stay here, I have to deal with Kyle taking over everything. Sorry this got so long. I'm typing this hiding in my room while they're watching TV together in the living room. Edit, wow, I wasn't expecting so many responses. To answer some questions, no, my mom and Kyle aren't married. They've been dating for 7 months, but like I said, I've only met him a few times before he moved in because he was always busy when I was around. Someone asked about my relationship with my dad. It's okay, I guess. We do every other weekend visits, even though I'm technically too old for a custody arrangement now. He works construction, so he's pretty tired a lot of the time. He's not great at talking about feelings, but he does try in his own way, hence the frog collection. He brings one back whenever he works out of town. For those suggesting I just study at the library, our local library closes at 6 p.m. on weekdays, and I work after school until 7:30 3 days a week. The school library is only open during school hours. And no, my mom doesn't see why this is a problem because Kyle needs his own space too. Now for the first update, well, this situation has gone from bad to worse. Really not sure what to do now. So last week, when Kyle was out watching some game with his buddies at this bar, he goes to like twice a week, I decided to talk to my mom. Side note, he always comes back from these guys' nights smelling like whiskey, which makes me super uncomfortable. It reminds me of bad memories. Anyway, I had this whole script planned out in my head about feeling displaced and how important my study space is with finals coming up and college prep and everything. I was going to be super mature about it. But the second I brought up the guest room, Mom got all defensive, saying I was being selfish and that I always make everything about me. Then when I tried to explain how my grades might suffer, she literally rolled her eyes and said, "Here come the tears again," even though I wasn't even crying yet. She's been saying that since I was little, that I'm manipulative with those tears, which is so unfair because I literally just cry when I'm frustrated. I can't help it. I guess I just lost it at that point and said something I regret. I told her sometimes I wish Dad had won custody in the divorce. Her face changed before she got angry again. I immediately felt terrible and took it back, but the damage was done. The weird thing is, I'm usually such a pushover. I know that about myself. But then I say these horrible things when I'm really upset. I apologize like a million times even though I was still mad at her, which is so stupid of me. Things have gotten so much worse since then. Like little things that seem small on their own but together make me feel like I'm going crazy. My financial aid paperwork for college mysteriously disappeared from the kitchen counter where I left it. I was freaking out for 2 days looking everywhere. Then Kyle happened to find it behind the microwave. I never put anything there, especially not important documents. Then, I had this really important interview over Zoom for this scholarship that would cover most of my remaining tuition. And right in the middle, Kyle suddenly needed to fix the router and change the Wi-Fi password without telling anyone. I got disconnected and had to use my phone data to reconnect, which made me look super unprofessional. When I confronted him later, he just shrugged and said, "These things happen," but he was smirking. I swear he was. He's always making these comments about how expensive my textbooks and college supplies are, but then I'll see charges on Mom's credit card statement for parts for his stupid vintage motorcycle. It's some Harley from the 80s that he works on constantly in the garage, and Mom acts like this is some charming hobby instead of him wasting her money. But here's the really messed up thing. I think Kyle lost his job like 2 months ago. I stayed home from school last week because I had a really bad migraine. And around noon, Kyle just walks in the door. He looked shocked to see me on the couch. He mumbled something about forgetting some paperwork and went to their bedroom, then left again really quickly. After he was gone, I found a credit card statement on the counter showing he hasn't had any direct deposits from his company in 2 months. He's literally pretending to go to work every day. I tried to tell Mom about this, but she accused me of snooping and said I need to mind my own business because adult relationships are complicated, which is what she always says when she doesn't want to explain something. Mom has also been weird about me visiting Dad on weekends. She keeps making comments about how I'm being disloyal when I spend time there and has even forgotten to drive me there twice now. The drop-offs are so awkward too. Dad won't come to the door anymore and Mom won't get out of the car. They just glare at each other from a distance. It's so uncomfortable. When I asked Dad about some of the things Mom's been saying, like how he abandoned us during the divorce, he got really quiet. Then he admitted he hasn't always paid child support consistently, especially when he was between jobs like 2 years ago. So now I don't know who to believe about anything. They both seem to have completely different versions of what happened. The worst part is the new house rules that are making it impossible to study. No lights after 10 p.m. to save on electricity, even though I need to study late sometimes. I can only use my laptop in common areas so they can help with homework, aka monitor everything I do. My bedroom door has to stay open during the day for better airflow, but Kyle's precious motorcycle parts get their own climate-controlled corner of the garage. My grades are slipping because I can't focus anywhere. I used to have all A's, and now I have mostly B's and even a C in physics, which is terrifying because I need to maintain my GPA for my scholarship. I was studying in the living room and Kyle sat down right next to me on the couch, even though there were like 3 other places to sit. He started asking about my scholarship status and how much money I got. I tried to be vague because it felt weird. Then he told me that community college would be more financially practical and that his nephew saved a ton of money that way. I told him I'm committed to State University, but thanks for the suggestion. He kept going on about his nephew who wasted money on a 4-year degree, and I was getting more uncomfortable by the second. My heart was racing, but I tried to stay calm. Then he mentions he borrowed my graphing calculator to check some numbers. That calculator cost $120. When I asked for it back, he said it was somewhere in the garage and he'd look for it tomorrow. I ended up spending 2 hours searching for it that night while everyone was asleep. Found it buried under his motorcycle parts. I was so desperate, I asked my best friend Taylor if I could crash on her couch for a while. At first she said yes, but then the next day she texted saying her parents weren't comfortable with it because they didn't want to get involved in family issues. That hurt so much. I pretended to understand, but I was honestly crushed. Last night I couldn't sleep, so I started searching Kyle's name online. I know, but I was desperate for some kind of information about him. I found this girl Adriana on Instagram, whose mom dated Kyle like 2 years ago. And get this, she has posts from back then talking about how Kyle moved in with them because of temporary housing issues and then started controlling everything and creating all these financial problems. It's the exact same pattern. I ended up spending like 3 hours scrolling through all her posts instead of studying for my calc final. I'm so panicked about everything that I did something I'm not sure was smart. I applied for independent student status on my financial aid forms without telling either of my parents. I don't even know if I qualify, but I'm just so scared about how I'm going to pay for college with everything falling apart at home. I've started having these panic attacks in the school bathroom between classes. Yesterday, I couldn't breathe for like 5 minutes and was late to English because I was hiding in a stall trying not to let anyone hear me crying. My graduation is in less than a month, and everything is falling apart when it's supposed to be this amazing time in my life. I don't know what to do anymore. Now for the second update. I guess I should start with what happened about 3 weeks ago when I discovered my mom and Kyle had borrowed $600 from my graduation money to cover Kyle's car payment. I had been saving that money for years for college stuff, and she knew how important it was to me. I keep my money in this hollowed-out copy of Pride and Prejudice on my bookshelf. My mom gave me that book when I was 14, right after the divorce, when I was going through a really rough time. So she definitely knew where my money was, which makes the whole thing even more messed up. I was going through my stuff trying to organize for graduation, which is literally next week, by the way, and I decided to check how much money I had saved up. I opened the book and immediately felt sick. The envelope was there, but it felt way too thin. I had $1,247 in there, and when I counted, it was only $647. I went downstairs and had this whole speech planned in my head, but when I walked into the living room and saw them both sitting there watching TV, I just lost it. I tried to stay calm at first. I asked if either of them took money from my book. My mom got this look on her face, like she was caught but was trying to play it cool. Kyle just stared at the TV. Mom told me they just borrowed a little for Kyle's car payment and they'd pay it back before I leave for college. Like it wasn't a big deal at all. I don't even remember exactly what happened next, but I know I started crying and yelling about how they had no right to take my money without asking. Mom kept telling me I was overreacting. I know I said some things I regret. I called her a terrible parent and said she always chooses men over me, which was pretty harsh. But honestly, I think I handled it as well as possible considering the circumstances. The craziest part is during this fight, Mom finally admitted she knew Kyle had lost his job before he even moved in with us. It was never a temporary arrangement like she told me. She knew he had nowhere to go and no income and just let him move in anyway without telling me anything. I felt so betrayed, like she had been lying to me this whole time. Kyle finally spoke up and said he wanted me to consider community college to save money, not because he was trying to steal my college fund, but because he was worried about student loan debt from his own experience. He mentioned still paying off loans from 15 years ago, but then he ruined it by saying I should be grateful someone's thinking about my financial future since I clearly wasn't. I was so confused. Like, was I wrong about his intentions? Had I been misreading everything? But then I remembered all the other weird stuff. The missing financial aid forms, the router problems during my scholarship interview, him always going through my college mail. That night, I packed up as much of my stuff as I could and called my dad to come get me. I decided I was moving to his place, even though it meant finishing senior year remotely. Mom kept switching between giving me the silent treatment and asking me to be reasonable while I packed. I took all my important stuff, but left behind this collection of seashells that Mom and I had gathered during a beach trip after the divorce. I left them on purpose, which feels kind of petty now, but I was just so angry. Living at my dad's turned out to not be the escape I hoped for. His apartment really is tiny, and his girlfriend Melissa clearly doesn't want me there. She's always making comments about temporary arrangements and how cramped everything is with 3 people. Dad works like 12-hour days at his construction job, so he's barely around, and when he is, he's exhausted. I had to switch to remote learning for the last few weeks of school because of district boundaries, which meant I barely got to see my friends before graduation. My grades dropped even more because it's so hard to focus at Dad's place, and I got super depressed about everything. About 3 weeks after I left, Mom started texting me. At first, just asking me to return the spare house key. Then it escalated to blaming me for abandoning her with financial problems. Then she had the nerve to say I was too hard on Kyle, who was just trying to help. Can you believe that? The worst part. Last week, I overheard my dad telling Melissa that I'm dramatic like my mother when they thought I was asleep. I had gotten up to get water and they were talking in the living room. It hit me so hard, like neither of my parents is the hero or villain I thought. They're both just flawed people who make selfish choices sometimes. So yesterday, everything got worse again. I checked my college portal and discovered my scholarship had been reduced because of my GPA drop. I completely lost it, had a full-on panic attack in my dad's bathroom, hyperventilating and everything. I called my mom because I still wanted her to comfort me or help me figure out what to do. She answered but sounded super distracted, and I could hear Kyle talking in the background. I told her about my scholarship getting reduced because my grades dropped and that I didn't know what to do. She just said that these things happen sometimes. When I mentioned I'd need more money for tuition now and asked about getting the $600 back, she said they were still tight and couldn't repay it right now. I started crying and told her this was exactly why I couldn't stay at home. She got defensive and said I abandoned her when things got tough, which is what I always do. Something in me just snapped. I told her exactly how she failed to prioritize me, how she let Kyle move in knowing he had no job, how she let him take over my study space right before the most important semester of high school, how she let him borrow my money without even asking. She went silent for a while and then just said, I don't understand adult relationships. I told her I understand manipulation perfectly and that I found Kyle's ex-girlfriend's daughter online, and he did the exact same thing to them. This is his pattern with single moms. She hung up on me, then texted like 5 minutes later that I had crossed a line. I found out through mutual friends that Kyle moved out of Mom's house by the end of summer, about 2 months after our fight. Mom never really apologized to me. We had this super awkward coffee meeting right before I left for college, where she just said, relationships are complicated, and I'll understand when I'm older, which made me want to scream. I'm not proud of this next part, but I anonymously sent all the info about Kyle's previous financial and housing history that I found online to my mom and to his new girlfriend, who I found on social media like 3 weeks after he moved out of Mom's place. I feel kind of vindicated, but also a little ashamed. But honestly, if it protects other women from his pattern, then whatever. I'm at college now with reduced scholarship funding, but I'm figuring it out. I got a work-study job at the library and I'm applying for every small scholarship I can find. I only talk to both parents, like once every couple weeks, and the conversations are super short and awkward. The hardest part is that I keep questioning myself in all my relationships now. Like, am I being manipulated? Am I missing something obvious? And sometimes I catch myself using my mom's exact phrases when arguing with my roommate. Stuff like, "You're overreacting," or "You're making everything about you." And it horrifies me. I don't want to be like that. I guess what I've learned is that standing up for yourself has real consequences. Family relationships are way more complicated than I thought. There's no real heroes or villains, just people making choices that hurt other people sometimes. I still check my mom's social media almost every day, even though I know it just makes me feel worse. Part of me keeps hoping for some kind of apology, but I'm not sure if that's even possible or healthy.